In 1911, two teams of adventurers made their final preparations in their quest to be the first people in modern history to reach the South Pole. For one team, it would be a race to victory and a safe return home. For members of the second team, it would be a devastating defeat, reaching the pole only to find the wind whipped flags of their rivals planted 34 days earlier, followed by a race for their lives, a race that they lost in the end as the advancing winter swallowed them up. All five members of the second pole team perished, staggering from exhaustion, suffering the dead black pain of frostbite, and then freezing to death as some wrote their final journal entries and notes to loved ones back home. It's a near perfect mashed pair. We have two expedition leaders, Roald Amundsen, remember the name, Roald Amundsen, the winner, and Robert Falcon Scott, the loser, of similar ages, 39 and 43, and with comparable experience. Amundsen led the first successful journey through the Northwest Passage and joined the first expedition to spend the winter in Antarctica because they were looking at South Pole. Scott led the South Pole expedition in 1902, reaching 82 degrees south. Amundsen and Scott started their respective journeys for the pole within days of each other, both facing a round trip of more than 1400 miles into an uncertain and unforgiving environment where temperatures could easily reach 20 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, even during the summer, made worse by gale force winds. And keep in mind, this was 1911. They had no means of modern communication to call back to base camp, no radio, no cell phones, no satellite links, and a rescue would have been highly improbable at the South Pole. If they screwed up, they were the first ones to be there. One leader led his team to victory and safety, the other led his team to defeat and death. What separated these two men? Why did one achieve spectacular success in such an extreme set of conditions while the other failed even to survive? It's a fascinating question and a vivid analogy for our overall topic today. So, uh, this is again one of Jim Collins' concepts. Uh, this is called 10x's. So, which is essentially Jim is trying to define these kind of people who lead beautifully and lead their teams to success and achieve like great monumental success, essentially. And these 10x's have certain qualities that bring out that those leadership uh, skills and the intuition, all of that forward. And so Jim is has tried to kind of condense it all down into this concept of 10xers, where he says that there are certain behavioral traits that these 10xers have, which anyone with the right conscious mindset can develop, right? And this is again from the book Good to Great, Great by Choice by Jim Collins. And Great by Choice is my favorite Jim Collins book. I'm going to put it up in the description as well. If you buy it, it'll support us and this particular channel where I talk about more such concepts in business that you can use for yourself. Now, um, this particular concept of 10x's is really important because I really believe in personal productivity as well as personal development, and it gives me a holistic understanding ki, okay, this is what I need to shoot for. This is the direction that I want to keep working on. And the three components that Jim talks about, uh, which is Fanatic Discipline, there are actually four: Fanatic Discipline, Empirical Creativity, Productive Paranoia, and then Level 5 Ambition. So all three builds the last one, which is Level 5 Ambition. uh, so all these are essentially really important to imbibe and really put through within yourself, so that you can then share it with the team that you're working with, and of course the organization that you built or are part of. So yeah, I mean, he started with this story of Amundsen and Scott, and it's crazy because this is a great story, and I'll probably keep sharing it in between. Amundsen was essentially building his foundations for his quest, training his body and learning as much as possible from practical experience about what actually worked. So what Amundsen was doing all through his life was essentially building foundation for his quest. He didn't know he was gonna do this quest, take this quest, but he was building those foundations. He was putting himself in different situations to actually gauge what actually happens on the real ground when he's there. Right, Amundsen even made a pilgrimage to apprentice with Eskimos. Right, they are the closest humans who are essentially at the North Pole, living in those conditions. Of course, when he's going to South Pole, he has to learn the ways that Eskimos have figured out over the over the centuries. What better way to learn what worked in polar conditions than to spend time with people who have 100 years of accumulative experience in ice and cold and snow and wind? He learned how Eskimos used dogs to pull sleds. He observed how Eskimos never hurried, moved slowly and steadily, avoiding excess sweat that could turn into ice in sub zero temperatures. He adopted Eskimo clothing, loose fitting to help sweat evaporate, and protective. He systematically practiced Eskimo methods and trained himself for every conceivable situation he might encounter en route to the pole. Amundsen's philosophy: you don't wait until in an you don't wait until you're in an unexpected storm to discover that you need more strength and endurance. You don't wait until you're shipwrecked to determine if you can eat raw dolphin. You don't wait until you're on the Antarctic journey to become the superb skier and dog handler. You prepare with intensity all the time so that when the conditions turn against you, you can draw from a deep reservoir of strength. And equally, prepare you prepare so that when conditions are turned in your favor, you can strike hard. This is a really important philosophy to kind of take home, that you prepare with such intensity all the time that no matter what the situation is, if it's good, then you really strike hard and you take the most out of it. That is, you make the most of that particular situation. But if it's bad, then you still have a huge and deep reservoir of strength where you can pull back out of, right? Strength in terms of skills, strength in terms of just keeping at it, right? Knowing that this will pass and this will, your skills and your things that you've learned over the years, it will kind of work out. So, Jim is saying that, Amundsen is the kind of person who's done, like, he's put in the reps before he even decided that he's going to go to Antarctica, right? He was putting in the reps, he was taking those notes, he was working and learning intensely about these things, which then when he decided to go to Antarctica and when that kind of started working out, he was able to put all of those skills to use. Amundsen even planned to kill some of the weaker dogs along the way to fuel the stronger dogs. So, the level of detail is really important. Amundsen systematically built enormous buffers for unforeseen events, right? So again, he wanted to keep buffers for unforeseen events, right? Keeping that buffer of money or supplies or energy or whatever that may be, but he was keeping enough buffers in order to make sure that in case there's any kind of tragedy, he'll have enough food, he'll have enough water, he'll have enough supplies to go through it and cross through that particular barrier. Whereas Scott did not do so. Scott kept it very cut to cut, and that caused a big problem because when they started, when they got delayed, it became very difficult for the other team to kind of survive. Amundsen didn't know precisely what lay ahead, right? Again, something that he did. He did not really know what's gonna be ahead. He didn't know the exact terrain, the altitude of the mountain passes, or the barriers he might encounter. He and his team might get pounded by a series of unfortunate events. Yet, he designed the entire journey to systematically reduce the role of big forces, and chance events by vigorously embracing the possibility of those very same big forces and chance events. So basically, he just assumed that anything and everything that's going to go bad will go bad, and I will prepare against it. And when I prepare against it, I will have all of the supplies, all of the materials, all of the skills, all of the support that I need in that moment. Uh, and of course, if I have anything additional, then I can obviously bring it back. But at least I'm carrying everything additional with me, so that if I get stuck, I will have something to fall back on. So he designed the entire journey to systematically reduce the role of big forces and chance events by vigorously embracing the possibility of those very big forces and chance events. He presumed bad events might strike his team somewhere along the journey, and he prepared for them, even developing contingency plans so that the team could go on should something unfortunate happen to him along the way. Right. So thinking about all of the contingency plans and what all scenarios could happen, and then working accordingly. Amundsen and his team reached home base in good shape on January 25, the precise day he had penned down into his plan. Crazy, crazy. And this is like the other team, which is the Scott and the two companions. They just, uh, yeah, they just got stuck in the snow and kind of died over there. So this is a really crazy story. Of course, I'm not telling you the entire thing with all of the details. You'll have to get this particular book for that. Otherwise, Amundsen and Scott's story has been covered in another really good book that Jim has mentioned. So you can go and check that out. But over here, what Jim is trying to tell us and what he's trying to teach us is essentially that different behaviors, it's the difference between the success and the failure is different behaviors by the different by the two leaders, right? The circumstances of Scott and Amundsen were almost exactly the same, right? They started off almost the same time. Of course, Amundsen finished, but Scott was not very far behind. He could have reached there if he had done the right amount of preparation and had some more strength. And of course, like the kind of weather both of them faced in their travel was also very similar. So it was just different behaviors between the two men that caused this massive change and massive difference in results that they got. So he says that it's different behaviors, not different circumstances, that made this. On the one hand, 10xers understand that they face continuous uncertainty and that they cannot control and cannot accurately predict significant aspects of the world around them. On the other hand, 10xers reject the idea that forces outside their control or chance events will determine their results. They accept full responsibility for their own fate. So it's a paradox, right? One hand, they do understand that there are things that will happen out of the ordinary, completely new, something that they won't even that no one can even think about and prepare for. But at the same time, they reject the idea that it's outside their control. They reject the idea that they couldn't have prepared for it beforehand. They reject the idea that give it up for to the give up the responsibility for it and just let it be. And that fallacy, this paradox, is a positive one over here. It's not a negative paradox. It's a positive paradox because makes you it makes you realize that there are things bigger than you which will there can be things that can go bad, and so that you're not surprised, so that you're not cursing the circumstance. Rather, you have already prepared for it as much as you can, right? As much as you can. So that's what he's saying over here, that 10x says embrace this paradox of control and non-control. 10xers bring this idea to life by a triad of core behaviors. These are the core behaviors that I spoke to you about. The core behaviors are fanatic discipline, empirical creativity, and productive paranoia. Right? These three are the core behaviors, different behaviors that 10xers show. Fanatic discipline, right? Being really fanatic about what work needs to be done, when it needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and all of those things, right? And that is fanatic discipline. Second is empirical creativity. Empirical creativity means creativity with data, right? So you use data and then kind of deploy it in your creativity. You don't just use you don't just go blind into your creativity as your mind feels like it, but rather you merge, you marry the data, the analysis, the logic part of things with finding solutions to it creatively, right? So that is empirical creativity. And then the third one is productive paranoia. Productive paranoia means you have to be paranoid about what are the things that can happen, that might happen, that could kill the business, that could kill that could do harm to you physically, health wise, whatever. And yet use that paranoia not as fear, not something that kind of makes you worry all the time. Rather, you use that in terms of better productive the direction to your productivity, that you know that okay, there are these 10 problems that I might face, and it might come my way. So you systematically build processes, build systems, build teams to avoid them, right? To avoid them even before they come in. So that is what productive paranoia looks like. Animating through these three core behaviors is the central motivating force, which is the level 5 ambition. So he's saying that all of these three kind of get animated by the central driving force, which is the level 5 ambition. We're going to talk a lot about level 5 ambition and all of these things. And we have discussed different concepts like these, but I like Jim has done a brilliant job with these books, right? Great by Choice is my personal favorite. Good to Great is the popular one, and Beyond Entrepreneurship as well is really good. So all of these three disciplines or behaviors that Jim is saying, Fanatic Discipline, um empirical creativity, and productive paranoia, are really important to embrace. And he's given multiple examples as well. And when we embrace them, when we really put them in our lives, we will see the results start coming out very quickly, almost immediately. You might have to wait a month or 2 months, but in the grand scheme of times, a month, 2 months, 3 months is nothing, right? But you do have to put in that time. You have to show that discipline. You have to show that paranoia, and you have to be creative about your results, or the results that you're seeking, right? So that's the story of 10xers. Of course, I'm not covering all of these things, but I have covered quite a lot of these things in the other uh, videos. So please do have a look at those. Do subscribe. Do give this video a like. It really boosts it and helps me kind of feel good about making these videos, so that I don't feel that I'm talking to just dot in the middle of nowhere. And of course, do mention in the comments what other concepts that I can help you explain, and at the same time, what problems are you facing that you need solutions to, and I'll figure out something that I can answer. Uh, Figure out a concept or a mental model or framework that I could give to you that helps you in that particular decision or problem that you're facing. Yeah. I hope this was fun and you liked it. I will see you in the next one. Bye.